Well, good morning everyone, and thank you so much in such a busy church calendar for allowing me to come. And I do apologise that Jill, our wonderful pastor in Central Australia, couldn't make it to be with you as well. I just want to begin by acknowledging the support of your flea market and your congregation and individuals in your passion and care for people wherever they might be across this vast country. So I do want to start by saying thank you. I'll see if this is working. We just heard the story from Luke chapter 15, the parable of the lost sheep. It's one of three parables in Luke chapter 15 if you want to go and have a look later. The next one is about a lost coin, and then the third one is what we often call the prodigal son, the parable of the prodigal son. But I want to today focus on the parable of the lost sheep. And I am so thrilled there's this banner on the wall here, folks. Whoever did that it is pure genius. Because while the parable, we often call it the lost sheep, I love this banner, and I'm sorry if people online can't quite see it, but it's a panorama of sheep in all sorts of different places. The wanderings of life have led sheep in different ways. The ones on the right are in the sun on beautiful green lush pasture. The ones over here, black clouds, it's a bit gloomy there. There are some in and around the rocks. There are some close to the shepherds. There are some that have just, life has led them away. And the story today that Jesus tells isn't about why that naughty sheep wandered off. It's about Jesus' love for all the sheep wherever life has taken them on that journey. The story describes a shepherd, and of course in later times Jesus talks about himself as being the good shepherd. The story talks about a shepherd who will leave the 99 to go and find the one, because his love and care and concern for that one is so great. And when Jesus talks about that, when the shepherd finds that one, he doesn't give it a bit of a smack on the behind and say, "Oh, go on, get back you." What does he do? He puts it on his shoulders and lovingly carries it back. That's an amazing image of the love and care that Jesus, the Good Shepherd, has for all the sheep, wherever they might be. Willing to leave the comfort of the 99 to go out and find the one that has moved away, because we love and care so deeply for that one and want it to be back in fellowship, in community. And not only does the shepherd carry that sheep back, but he throws a party. He invites the friends, the family, and says, "Come celebrate with me." There is such joy in the heart of Jesus when those sheep are back together as one. Now, we've spent a fair bit of this service, as Phil said, talking about how we are shepherding. And it's such a thrill to be a part of Daniel and in hearing that new journey of shepherding children and young people in this community. And Tim's talked about shepherding students from overseas in their journey into faith, but in their journey into understanding and living in Australia in a university context. I think in this story, Jesus also challenges the hearers of that story, which through the ages includes us, to say, "You too I call to be shepherds." And I wonder for us here in Turramurra this week, who might that one sheep be in our terms? Perhaps it's a young person struggling in school or uni, or just doesn't, maybe they've had to leave home, it's just not working for them. Perhaps it's a young mum who's a bit afraid of what to do next because family life's dangerous. Perhaps it's someone we know struggling with mental health issues. Perhaps it's someone we know who's in danger of losing their job and just doesn't quite know what's coming next. Perhaps it's someone who the wanderings of life has just taken them on another journey. And I want to acknowledge that perhaps some of you today have come here feeling like you're a bit like the one, just not quite sure where you are and how you fit. Perhaps you're feeling a bit isolated and alone. However you've come to this time, this place this morning, this story, please hear the good news from Jesus. Jesus loves and cares for all the sheep, no matter where life's journey has taken them. And his desire is to pick you up and carry you and care for you and for all those sheep in our community. I'm not sure we still use this term anymore, but back in the old days, and maybe Phil will remember, a minister's congregation was called a flock. So that analogy of sheep is such a strong one. I get the joy of working in a place called Frontier Services, and Phil's done us great justice. We're part of the Uniting Church called to offer the love and ministry and service in the name of Christ in remote Australia. From a Frontier Services perspective, from Jill's perspective, when I was speaking to her, we often hear this story as saying, yeah, well, there's 99 sheep doing it pretty comfortably in Sydney. What about the one sheep that has to live out in the rural Australia, remote parts of Australia? How do we show our love and care for the sheep whose life's journey has taken them into far-flung parts of this huge land? I could have shown you a map, but if you think of a map of Australia in your head and draw a great big circle in the middle that goes all the way to the west and all the way to the east coast, except for a tiny strip, it's about 86% of the country, and about 3% of the population live in that bit, and 97% live in the bit on the east coast. How do we, the 97% of the population, think about offering love, care, mission and ministry in the name of Christ to the others who live in the 86% of this landmass? Hopefully this is going to work. Can I? Ah, yes. We do it in a couple of ways. One is people like Jill, bush chaplains, who are shepherds of their flock, who walk alongside people providing practical, pastoral and spiritual care to people in areas of need. 3 of my chaplains are there. Noel on the left, accompanying an older person called Anna, who lives on a property in remote New South Wales, whose husband passed away. The property was 4th generation in his family, but Anna's asking the question, it's not my history. What will I do now? Noel can't make the decisions for Anna, but he can walk alongside her as she deals with difficult challenges. In the middle is Pastor Joe Ecker up in North Queensland. He sent a photo of him baptising a young woman in the river in the community that he has been engaging with. He told me by the end of the day he'd baptised 24 people because they came to watch and were convicted themselves and said, I'd like to be a part of this. But Pastor Joe is a real shepherd. He sent the 3rd shot in that sequence, showed him cooking a barbecue for the community after he'd baptised them, because that was his way of showing hospitality and welcome. And the 3rd is Pastor Jenny Feldmeyer. She's works out in Western Queensland out towards Birdsville Way. She began life as a Scripture Union chaplain in schools, but her journey now leads her to working with people on remote communities in far West Queensland. We've got 20 of those chaplains, and you can see the red areas. The other thing I quickly want to say is, we also have a volunteer program, and the volunteers are made up of people who look remarkably like you and I. Remarkably like you and I. People with a passion for helping people in remote parts of Australia. We get lots of requests from people in Western New South Wales and beyond saying, can someone come and just look after my farm for a week because I've got to go to the doctors in Sydney? Or can someone please just come and give me a hand because I'm just so bogged down with the work on the property that I haven't had a chance just to tidy up around the house. And we match volunteers to those properties. And can I tell you, I get the privilege of listening to the stories. And without fail, the people who are supported say to me, what the volunteers did to help me was great. But the best thing was they turned up and they cared for me and we had a cuppa and a chat, and that touched my heart. It's fabulous. Very briefly, I'm going to tell you quickly about Jill, who would have told you herself. Jill's based in Finke, which is in that black circle there. It's about the most middle bit of Australia you can get to. That's Jill there. Jill is a significant young woman leader in our Aboriginal ministries across Australia, which we call the Uniting Aboriginal and Islander Christian Congress. You can see her in various guises there. Jill is a proud Arunta woman, which is the clan across the middle of Central Australia. Through missionaries in the past, Jill, who now lives in the town of Finke, came to know the Lord. Finke is a community that used to be on the railway line from Adelaide to Alice Springs, but when they put in the new one, they moved it 200 kilometres away. And so now Finke is a bit isolated. But for 80 years, Finke was where the train stopped, and there's a good river there, so a large Aboriginal community grew in that place. The census reckons there's 200 people in Finke, but Jill says by the time she drives 10 k's around, it's about 500 people is her flock that she ministers to. Jill, being a local woman, speaks the language, and she also, of course, speaks English. So I asked her on the phone yesterday, once I knew she wasn't able to come, I said, what are some of the things that shepherding means for you, Jill? And she said, for the older people for whom English isn't their first language, shepherding means taking them to an appointment, be it medical or some engagement, and helping them understand what's going on, because I can speak the languages. She said, it means sometimes picking up kids who've been dropped somewhere strange. She said she got a call from a frantic mum the other day to say her kids had been dropped off a bus that didn't come one way, but it turned the other way. And she drove 2 hours with that mum to make sure the kids were safe. Shepherding means a weekly gig in the local early childhood education centre, singing songs and telling stories with the kids. There isn't a church in Finke, so shepherding and pastoring for Jill means doing house church on a regular basis, because people are interested in the stories of Jesus, and people love it when Jill is with them, telling stories and praying with them. And for a special service like Easter, Jill's found a bit of a park just out of town, and she calls it the open air church, and that's her at Easter. And she calls it the open air church because it's a safe space for everyone to come. There's no doors, there's no entry fee, people can just gather. And so she started to offer that for significant times. You can see some of the landscape there. It's beautiful but very challenging. So when I think of Jesus the Good Shepherd, I get inspired by the people I get to work with every day. Chaplains in remote parts, volunteers who go and walk alongside for a period of time, offering very practical things, and in and through that, showing the love and care for Jesus, the Good Shepherd. Please pray for Jill and our bush chaplains in their work and our volunteers, because it really is a beautiful shepherding ministry. And let me just finish by returning back to the story. Jesus told this parable. The message is no one is outside the love and care of Jesus. Whatever the circumstances, whatever the wanderings of life, no one goes outside the love and the care of Jesus. And Jesus invites us to join in that shepherding ministry in the world, wherever that might be. Thank you again for your time. It's a real blessing to be with you, and may God bless you. Thank you.